Today, I want to share with you this CoE StarKit extension that I built to track failed flow runs across all the environments that you flag as production in your organization. In this video, I will show you how the solution works and some technical considerations that you should take if you plan to create your own solution using this video. If you just want a copy of the solution and import it into your own center of excellence, please reach out to me via my personal website and I will be delighted to send you a copy of the zip file of the solution. That being said, you know the drill. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and contact me via my website. And with no more ado, let's start with the video. First, why do we care about this solution in the first place? Well, in any organization where we have a critical mass of citizen developers, so business users who are building their own solutions, their own apps, automations, etc., you probably are already thinking of, okay, how can we separate what they build from the solutions built by IT, by external consultants, by professional developers? Well, I would suggest that you separate in different types of environments, and we could call shared environments, shared among citizen developers. That's why we said shared. And these shared environments, normally what I would recommend is that you only have like a dev and a prod tiers, not the full dev test prod. Why? Because we want to try to make their lives easier and put as the lowest entry barrier for them in terms of deployment, ALM, and all these things that can be a little bit cumbersome for somebody who is not a professional developer. If we have such a setting, highly recommended, what we would do is assist them on the the deployment to production process. And for that, we would have a system, a process where we would look what solutions these developers are actually deploying to production. And we would track things like a basic description, who are the key stakeholders, who is the business application owner, who is the technical owner of the solution, and other interesting things in case something goes wrong. And in the end, the ultimate responsible is, of course, Global IT, the Power Platform governance team. So great, we have then a process, a system to keep track of such solutions that are deployed to production. And then after that, what we don't have a way to track unless you go physically to those flows or to that environment. You don't have a way to see what's happening if some flows are failing onward. So this is why I created this Center of Excellence extension in order to track this happening. Now let's take a look at the actual demo of the solution. And I hope I didn't bore you too much, but it's really important, I believe, that we have all these concepts in mind when talking governance. We've talked concepts like environment strategy when separating these different types of environments. We've tackled what citizen developers are and adoption related concepts. And then processes like the deployment to production and getting an inventory of the solutions that are deployed to production, etc. Very important stuff that we need to take into account when talking governance. But I'm rambling again. Let's take a look at the Center of Excellence extension. So first we have this new table. This is the custom table that is holding all these failed execution logs. And here we have already 3 of them. We have a lookup column to the actual environment and the flow. And these are the, if we control click, we will jump to the actual, let's go to the flow entity, to the actual Center of Excellence flow entity, the record in the Center of Excellence, so that we could, from here, take a more close look at all the details that we may have informed here. Connections that are being used, shared with, settings, all this information that comes from the Center of Excellence. So great. Our flow behind the scenes is going to be every night going environment per environment and getting all the failed execution logs. But how can we flag an environment as production? I've also created this custom column that is tracking if an environment is marked as production. Here I just have these two, but we could, for example, pick this one and with this custom button over here, that's going to be only visible when we select them. We will here, if we click here yes in this dialog, basically mark these two as production environments, and then the flow will take these environments into account as well. The rest of the video, I'm going to dive into the technical considerations in case you're just curious or you really want to build your own solution. Well, please take a look at this part of the video because I will tell you about some limitations that you will encounter when approaching how to solve this problem. So first, let's see how can we get the flow run executions, because if we go to where am I? A flow here, any flow will have this 28 run history that we can actually get because this is stored in a table called flow run. So we go here to tables. We have to filter here by all, and in the top right corner, just flow run, search by this name, and then you will encounter this table, which interestingly enough, it's an elastic table. More about that in another video on my channel. Now, if we jump here, already in the data preview, we will see all these flow executions. These flow executions are actually what we can see when we log into the details of a particular flow. Another way to look at flow run executions is with this new, let me zoom in here, this new automation center. Some features still in preview, but it's worth checking out. We have this like more executive overview here, but if we go here to runs, we can see all the executions, and we will see here as well uh, the the failed flow executions, all errors here. And we can put some of them. Well, let's click all of them. Okay, and we will get, if any, we don't have any failed executions. Now this is great, of course, but it only serves us in a particular environment. What we are trying to solve is getting this information for all the environments that are flagged as production. So for that, we have to build a flow. And the flow, I'm going to break down the flow in a moment, but let's take a couple of considerations. We want to optimize uh, the flow, thinking on, for example, when we here go to the flow runs, you see that this flow is going to appear several times, obviously because flows may be triggered more than once, and we may have more than one error for the same flow. So what we want is getting the unique values. Talking SQL, if we jump to SQL for CDS and external toolbox extension, I have also a video in the channel where I talk about this tool. Comes very handy. Uh, if we take a look here, this is basically the query to get the most important columns on this table. We'll see all of them, and you can already see that, yeah, of course, we have repeated rows for the name of the flow because we want an aggregate view. We don't want all the flow runs. For that, we go to the particular environment where we want to just know what flows did have an error, any number of errors, because what we want to do is, okay, take a look and give a heads up to the owner, hey, I've seen there are errors with this flow, check it out, please, solve it because you're in production, right? Now what we would do in SQL is here apply a distinct clause, right? So only have, oops, I didn't select the whole word. We will see only these different names. I was getting crazy because this didn't make sense. Only two flows, right? This is correct. But yeah, because I'm in a different environment. I'm connected to a different environment than the Center of Excellence. That's why we're seeing different data. Anyway, what I wanted to show you is that, okay, great. So we have the distinct clause here. We get the data that we want. We would have here also the status column, maybe just know what flows are being affected. So here, just clicking, we don't have any data, but this close, if we hit here convert, we will get the fetch XML here that will tell us the distinct values for the workflow name, okay? And the conditions would be that the status is not succeeded, so any error would count. Now, my first approach was copying this and trying to fit it into the get. This is the get list rows, and here you can add the fetch XML query, and voila, this is what I hoped that worked, but apparently it doesn't. Well, it doesn't work because there's a limitation that we cannot have a distinct clause when using the list rows action with Power Automate. Although if we apply the clause um, with just a regular query with fetch XML or SQL, behind the scenes we are using the C# connectors, and that allows us to use a distinct clause. However, with Power Automate we cannot. Well, there's a workaround for that, and I was playing around with it in the solution, actually creating a custom API. So we create a custom API that then we can call from Power Automate that is actually going to handle that distinct clause to a plugin created with C#. And that works, but then you have to keep in mind that if you want to go that route, you will need to install this as a solution in all the production environments, because you are going to be calling that custom action, custom API to a particular environment. So if you take a look here, the environment is variable. We're getting the list rows action, but for a selected environment, because we want to take the flow runs table for a specific environment that we're checking that is flagged as production. So then this custom API would need to be installed in each environment in order to be, well, to exist there. Another consideration is that you don't want to be checking if the row already exists, right? So if you detect more errors next day, for example, you don't want to have a logic that's going to be too cumbersome to build and unnecessary to check if we already have this flow logged as an error. What then we can do is basically, instead of having that logic, we want to, when we update, use a observe multiple actions. So this is a batch operation. What we're doing is doing observe means we'll create or update. If it exists already, it will update. If it doesn't, then it will create, and do it in a batch manner. So all at once, because we don't want to do a patch for all of the different roads, because that will consume a lot of resources, and that will also impact our account licensing that we are also using for the Center of Excellence. So we don't want to get um, into the limits that request limits that we have for our license. Now, in order for the observed multiple message to work, we need to have an alternate key that identifies these rows over here. So this row with what needs to be identified? Well, with a specific flow and a specific environment. And then what I built, and I recommend you do too, is here create a custom alternate key that basically takes two columns into consideration, which is the actual the environment ID and the workflow ID, the flow ID of the actual environment that we are checking. Now, I wanted in the beginning to use an elastic table as well for this table, because then we would benefit of the 28 day time to live as well, or any other arbitrary time to live um, setting that we could add. More on that on my video on elastic tables. But I discovered that you cannot create alternate keys for elastic tables, or at least not as for now. This is January 2025. A last consideration that I discovered won't work is using a data flow. A data flow would be the preferable approach, because then it's going to be pretty optimized, and then we can do some, as the guy guys from GynaCube say massage the data, right? But we cannot do that because first, we cannot discover with Power Query the flow runs table because it's an elastic table, means a virtual entity, and it's not discoverable with the Power Query service. And second, we would have some problems with the connections because we are going to be executing the Power Query against different environments, meaning that we need to leverage different connections, each one connection per environment, and that's problematic with Power Query. I was running into some problems with that, and when I hit the flow run not being discovered problem, then I gave up because, well, it's basically we cannot do that right now, at least. Not that I know of. If you know how to do that, please let me know in the comments. Write to me via the personal website, please. So, quick recap: we've seen how to log failed flow run executions across any environments in your organization. And we've talked about some considerations regarding shared environments, what they are, um, handling solutions that are developed by citizen developers, but then we keep track as global IT, as the governance team, among other things. And also we've seen how to technically implement this solution over here. Now, please let me know in the comments what you think about the video, if you would have done something differently, and reach out to me via my personal website if you want to have a one-to-one talk. Thank you very much, and see you in the next one.